What if Scarlet and Violet are secretly getting the Breath of the Wild 2 treatment? We were all surprised when the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was finally revealed. The trailer showed what looked to be just another DLC for Breath of the Wild with new mechanics. But despite keeping the exact same overworld and graphics, it's being marketed as a brand new mainline game. And the fact that it keeps getting delayed suggests that there actually is more than meets the eye. Now the question is, would it be a bad idea for the next Pokemon game to be Scarlet and Violet sequels like Black and White 2? Let's find out. Let's start off with some facts. Scarlet and Violet sold more than 10 million copies in the first 3 days of sales, making it the fastest and best-selling Nintendo exclusive title of all time. So while it's safe to assume that the Pokemon Company made a significant profit from these games, and could easily rush out another small DLC for $30 and make even more profit, in this video, we'll be talking about why the Pokemon Company could be changing its release pattern once again, and be secretly gearing up to give Scarlet and Violet the same treatment as The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom with a sequel of its own. With that in mind, here's what we could be seeing in the next games. Brand new explorable areas. Similar to The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's new underground and skylands, we could be seeing new explorable areas, namely a secret underground city, beneath Paldea. Following the Hollow Earth conspiracy, there could be an underground city, reachable from behind the crystal structures at the bottom of Area Zero. This city could span across all of Paldea, similar to how Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's underground system works. In fact, a potential piece of evidence is revealed after defeating the AI version of Professor Sada or Turo near the end of the game. The game reveals that they're actually designed to be a paradise protection protocol. So what if this paradise is an underground city that the professor was trying to hide using this defense system? But that's crazy. Game Freak would never build a new underground system now, when they didn't do it for Legends Arceus, which should have had one. Listen, I hear you and I somewhat agree. But even though it may sound far-fetched at first, what if they have a half-baked underground system that never made the cut for Legends Arceus on time? Now would be a great time for it to be repurposed for sequels to Scarlet and Violet, to add more depth and story progression to our adventure in Paldea. That said, there's more room for new things to be added in the overworld than there is a need to create brand new areas to explore. More things to do in the overworld. It's no surprise that coming from Legends Arceus, and past entries in the franchise in general, a lot of fans have been really missing side quests and meaningful interactions with NPCs, which have been a staple of the franchise since Red and Blue, as these are arguably what make Pokemon games feel so alive. Maybe it's just me, and you can let me know in the comments if it is, but what I find myself missing the most in these games is the small things we grew up enjoying in Pokemon games, like visiting other people's houses and have them tell you a cool fact, story, or give you a hint about where to find a useful item or rare Pokemon. But to be honest, it never had to be rewarding in game, for it to feel fun and worth doing. I still remember youngster Joey telling me how comfy shorts are, and I just miss those simple interactions. They may seem small and insignificant, but when added up and viewed as a whole, it made the game world feel lived in and full of life. And this also helped flesh out the lore of the world and the people and Pokemon that live in it. It's for this same reason that I wish that you could just be walking in the overworld of Paldea and find people inviting you to play mini-games, similar to the Dome in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, or the Game Corner in Red and Blue. I find it really surprising that Game Freak didn't adapt a lot of famous Spanish traditions, like the running of the bulls, the tomato-throwing festival, or the human towers, as inspiration for mini-games in Scarlet and Violet. What's also really perplexing is that, even though Scarlet and Violet are the first Pokemon games to allow several players to explore each other's worlds in real time, there isn't really anything for players to do during multiplayer other than hang out and do raids together. Now seemed like the best time for Game Freak to finally introduce mechanics like building bases to show off to friends, or be able to farm and build items, similar to Legends Arceus. These in-game activities were arguably the main reason behind the success of games like Animal Crossing, as they added a lot to the replayability of those games. Before moving on to potential story directions, I want to touch on what this sequel could do for one of the biggest controversies of this generation, namely the performance of the games. Think about how amazing it would have been if Sword and Shield had enough development time to allow for a fully controllable camera in the base game, like it does in the expansion pass, and how much better the game's reception could have been. Now think about how more development time could fix Scarlet and Violet's lack of optimization and low frame rate, which make the game practically unplayable, and at best very difficult to enjoy, despite many of us really wanting to. And you don't even need to use your imagination, just look how good the game looks when running at a stable 60 frames per second. But even if the overworld and graphics had to stay the same for some reason, there's a lot of exciting possibilities we can expect from the story of a Scarlet and Violet sequel. It would be fair to assume that any kind of new storyline in the familiar Paldea region would be better experienced through new characters who aren't affected by the events of the original story. Although unlikely, it would also be great to get a brand new story that isn't tied to the original plot in any way. But what's more realistic is them retelling the original stories from different perspectives or in a different sequence of events, which may or may not lead to the same conclusions reached in Scarlet and Violet. In other words, these new stories wouldn't have to follow the usual pattern of our player character moving from another region, saving the world and becoming champion. With that in mind, let's explore some of these possibilities together. What if the original plot was reworked into a proper branch story, playable as different protagonists like Arven, Nimona, or Penny, similar to GTA 5 or Yokai Watch 4? This could help us both flesh out and dive even deeper into the original stories by giving us a look at what happened before the arrival of our character, what other characters were doing during our adventure, and what happens after the events of Scarlet and Violet. But that's all assuming we wouldn't mind revisiting the same storyline again but with more detail. Instead, what if this time we started the adventure right after graduating school, leaving the academic arc behind, and moving on to different themes, like plotting to stop a secret evil team from destroying the world? Or we could get more than just a new theme and get sent to a different time like in Legends Arceus, where we're now sent back in time to an ancient Paldea, having to adapt and uncover the origins of modern Paldea. I'm gonna go on a quick side note here to say that I can easily see a new Legends game in Paldea coming up next, and here's why. When you think about it, Paldea is mostly natural landscapes with very small cities few and far between. So Game Freak could recolor the overworld, reuse some assets from Legends Arceus, and add a graphical filter over the game like Link's Awakening and BDSP's linear blur effect, or Breath of the Wild and Legends Arceus cell shading, and it would give this new game a new identity of its own at a fraction of the development time it would take to make a new region or remake an old one. But going back to the narrative side of things, I find the idea of a story with little to no world-ending stakes really refreshing. This story would take place in a now peaceful, stable Paldea and focus primarily on character and world building, following the experiences and relationships of characters with the world, similar to the Yokai Watch series. And this wouldn't be an unnatural progression of events from Scarlet and Violet. That being said, as someone who also prefers a bit of chaos, I could also imagine our original plot continuing with a part 2 that deals with the negative consequences of Scarlet and Violet. Perhaps in this story the students suddenly start protesting Team Star members returning to school, igniting an even deeper hate in them and leading them to organized crime, which results in Paldea becoming a much more dangerous place. Continuing in this style, we could also one day discover that one of the school's teachers has gone rogue and started terrorizing the region with their ideals, like Ryfort, the history teacher, discovering more about the mythical treasures that leads her to becoming inspirited by the king of the old tales, leading us to uncover more of Paldea's ancient past and relationship with treasure, which could pull inspiration from the myths of El Dorado. Or maybe it's Hassel the art teacher who goes full hippie and frees more Paradox Pokemon from Area Zero into the wild, causing natural disasters and destroying the ecosystems of Paldea, ending with us discovering the origins and more about the third legendary. Reality check. Now I hate to be a bummer, but in the spirit of being pragmatic, we have to face the fact that a lot of we talked about could be deemed by the Pokemon Company to be high-risk, low-return fan service, as it would primarily target hardcore fans who are heavily invested in the series and don't want more novelty just for the sake of it. Not only that, but it has been proven time and time again that nothing matches the hype and sales of a brand new region or revisiting an old one, no matter how incomplete or unpolished they may end up being. There's something special about anticipating a brand new location to explore, new Pokemon to catch, and the air of mystery that surrounds it all before the games are released that can't be matched by anything else. Is that to say that the Pokemon Company won't experiment with new formulas and try to bridge the gap between what they know will sell millions in the short term, and what could keep the franchise fresh and alive for the long term? I would argue that if the Switch entries are any indication, it would be safe to assume that they may continue to surprise us, by defying our expectations and revisiting the concept of sequels like Black and White 2, following a similar pattern as the Zelda series. If you got this far, I'd like to genuinely thank you for watching, and I really hope you liked this video as it's my first one. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Let's continue our discussion around these ideas and others down there. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, as it helps out the channel a lot and lets you to stay up to date when new videos drop. Love y'all. Stay safe.